Welcome to the November 5th edition of Trips and Traps. Actually, it's May 5th, but it feels like December 5th. I'm Richard Migliore, joined by my main man and partner in crime, Ernie Munick. Ernie, we've been having a lot of fun here, even before the show started.
Let me tell you, we've got a grade 1 athlete and a grade 1 hypochondriac here. I just can't believe how he's dressed, but we are ready to kill him.
Well, we're either going to go swimming or ice skating out in the infield pond after we get through this. But let's jump right to it so we're not out here too long. And we're going to go all the way back to April 20th, and we're going to take a look at Mambo at the gym. And Mambo at the gym, well, some of his dance moves got a little bit stymied.
Yeah, I'm curious what you think, Mick, because is this a case of a horse that's very difficult to ride, or is the jock doing anything wrong? Either way, this is a horse to watch.
Well, he's definitely a horse to watch, and I think, honestly, he was best. I think it's a combination of things. I do think he's a bit difficult to ride. He's got a bit of a light mouth, and it's difficult on a 7/8 turf course to go into the turn dead on the rail and have the horse corner like a sports car. You need a little bit of wiggle room to be able to drop into the turn. Now, we're going to keep an eye on him, Ernie, and his head's going to come up here, and this is not the rider's fault. This is when a horse just has a light mouth. He had to take a little too much hold, and the horse flips his head, costs him a bit of position.
So this was, Mick, that was not an example of being on heels. That was just the horse's mouth.
Yeah, I think because he was having a hard time negotiating that turn, being so close to the rail, and John Bisogno, his rider, had to lean back into his mouth a little bit, and there's a breaking point. When we talk about riders with good hands, it's about taking just the right amount of hold without taking too much. Well, unfortunately, it was just a bit too much for this particular horse. I don't blame John for any of that. I do think John maybe could have made better decisions later on.
Given what's already taken place, and we're going to see this horse get back in the game very shortly, does what has already transpired take a lot out of a horse, or at least take him out of the game at all?
Well, I think it's very individual, and it takes less out of horses on the turf. They're able to recover quicker than on the dirt. But I think here, John should have been looking for an escape route already. You've saved all the ground you can save. It's okay to give up ground now. And you see now he's kind of still pecking and hunting for room, where maybe if he had just followed the 9 and come out earlier, now he finally gets out. And I think Mambo at the gym finishes full of run and tips his hand that potentially he was the best horse on this day. I actually think this is a horse we want to follow back at Belmont Park, because I think Belmont will make it easier for the rider to handle a horse with a light mouth like him.
Very interesting stuff, Mick, because not only Mambo, but the horse coming up next, an example of two horses who are not win machines. But if you're not going to get a big price on a win machine. These horses are potentially big prices down the line. So sometimes you got to take chances. And if it's not next time, these are horses to follow.
Yeah, definitely horses to follow. And just to make the point, and I don't want to belabor it, but I think it's necessary. When you save ground early, it's okay to lose ground late. I don't think that you can lose ground on 2 turns, but if you know you're going to save all the ground in the first turn, you can afford to give up a little on the second turn. Conversely, if you're wide the first turn, save every inch the second turn. And I see some riders just kind of get married to that inside trip, where sometimes it's better to get in the clear.
You get buried.
Well, we're going to look at another race that I think illustrates the same point, and that's coming here on April 29th. And we're looking at number 3, Flaring, who she got off okay, and then she gets outrun, and I think we'll both agree. Keep an eye on her. She really gets to climbing, but I think she gets to climbing because she's not a filly that's not comfortable in behind horses.
It's a very interesting situation, Mick, because you see her at the back of the field, and I think at this point that Dylan Davis is just trying to find some sort of groove here, and the horse is not agreeing, and it's hard to see why. There are equipment things that maybe we can't see. But either way, she's fairly far back of what's going on.
Yeah, and I think she's a filly that wants to be more involved. If I have one criticism of Dylan, I would have liked to have seen him been a bit more aggressive on her leaving there. But now she's kind of back there, and again, her action isn't great. She's kind of up and down instead of forward, and I don't blame him for that, but I think he has decisions to make at one point. Now, we see him again here in behind horses. I think he would have been better off at this point to wait a little bit and come out and actually go to the outside. Now you're going to duck back in. He's going to run out of room. You're going to see she's going to duck back to the fence. You're going to have to steady here, break some momentum. And I don't think she's ever super comfortable in there. I think she'd have been a lot better off getting outside the 6. And just a little more patience would have been able to sift out into the clear.
Interesting. And Megan, I assume in sprint turf races, it's not always the easiest thing to get the clearance that you want.
No, it's not. But again, he saved a considerable amount of ground early on. So at some point, if you've got to give it up, you've already kind of compensated for that. And it just appeared to me that Flaring was not comfortable in behind horses. I think she'd have been more comfortable outside. And I think it took her best chance away. Now, I'm not blaming Dylan Davis 100% for this, but I think if you're more aggressive early, you're in a better position to get clear.
And she's one who I think is an interesting horse who's going to be a very decent price going down the road.
Well, of course, we talk a lot about turf races, but let's turn the page and go to April 30th, and let's talk about a dirt race here. And we're going to talk about, we have another turf race here. One more turf. And that's Rosette, number 3, first time in this country. Broke a little bit awkwardly, maybe bobbled a bit.
A little bit of trouble, a little bit of brushing at the start.
Now, I have some questions for you about this. Now, she's going to get a little bit keen, and she is a filly that has sprinted in Europe.
Yes.
Do you think this is a trip or a trap? Because I am the jury's not out with me. I wonder if she just didn't flatten out anyway, or was she just uncomfortable?
This is one of my least. When I say least favorite trips, I'm not talking about traffic. Just the dynamics of the race, and when you're forced to be in close to a fast pace, and you're kind of pressing inside. I never thought it was a comfortable pocket, Meg.
Right.
I always thought, there was kind of like, well, am I going to go in here? Am I not? But I'm in there now, and the pace is kind of fast. So if there was going to be one run, that's not going to happen. That you kind of exhausted a little bit of your run staying close. There's really not much to go. The pace is pretty hot, as you can tell by the way they finished, although those were good horses finishing.
Well, look where the winner is now in the far, far outside, Stormy Victoria, and look where Rosette is kind of bottled down in there, never a comfortable spot, having a steady. Now, I think this is a clear illustration. Joel Rosario and Stormy Victoria saved ground early and said, I'm going to lose ground now, but I'm not going to lose momentum.
Right.
And Rosette kind of had a steady, and then she shut down. Did she shut down because she got tired? She wasn't good enough? A combination of that and having a steady at a critical juncture? I'm willing to give her another try. I don't think she had a comfortable trip.
I'm willing to give her another try, too. I don't quite agree with the Racing Form chart comments. I think they slightly, overstated a bit, but that's not an easy gig. One more shot, and, even 5 furlongs or 5.5, not necessarily the 6 or 7.
Yeah, interesting. And, they're very good in Europe of having a handle of how far horses want to run. This filly had never run over 6 furlongs. They kind of know that she's not going to stay very far.
Yes.
So it's kind of an interesting point. Maybe we catch her at Saratoga
Absolutely.
at 5.5 on a firm course and chicken dinner that night.
No doubt. And in fact, we're getting to a horse at maybe not the next one, 2 down with Quaver. Similar, I could see 5.5 or 6. But we have a dirt horse coming up now, right?
Well, now the one dirt race we're going to talk about, and this is on April 30th, and this is Bellamy Way. Now, you felt that the chart caller overstated Rosette I think he understated Bellamy Way's trip.
I agree.
And Bellamy Way is a horse that runs good when he's involved, and and I'm a big Kendrick Carmouche fan.
Oh, me too.
I just question why Kendrick wasn't a bit more aggressive away from there.
I think there are a few things going on here. I mean, there was a stop and start a couple of times. There's a pace that is not that fast given who was on the lead. I mean, it was a bit of a surprise to see a horse I like, a horse to watch, Wayman Boyd, but I didn't expect him on the lead. I think that shows you what the pace is like. So he's far back, and he's ridden almost like a stout closer, and he is not that.
No, but now he's going to kind of get into a spot where he's not comfortable. This is an uncomfortable position in between horses, and this is when the stops and starts begin, like you talked about. Kind of gets up in between, has to steady back out of there. Backs up, and then he's going to go back to the same place again. At some point, you don't want the cheese. You just want out of the trap.
Yes, and you're going to see when he finally gets clearance, which is not that far from here, There's only one way, and the one way is extremely wide. And you can see, again, they're not flying up front. It's an honest, it's a board, it's moderate. I would call it moderate to slow to moderate pace. And now he has no choice but to go extremely wide.
Well, now he has to wait and come out and follow the horses that were stymieing his forward progress down the backstretch. If you're already kind of out of that position, would it be a better idea to just wait then and come out later instead of kind of up in there, steady, up in there, steady? It was a very herky-jerky type of trip.
So you would have taken that turn a little tighter before letting him go.
Yeah, and I probably would have tried to avoid running up in there on several occasions. You're making multiple little runs within the context of the race. And most horses have one run. Really good horses have two. Great horses have three. Now, Bellamy Way is a real nice horse, but we're not going to confuse him with a three-run kind of horse.
No.
I also think Bellamy Way is better involved. And it just, again, I think this is one Kendrick Carmouche would like to have over. Also, I wonder, is Bellamy Way a better two-turn horse?
As you're talking, that's what I'm wondering myself. But he's such an interesting trip here. This wasn't one thing. This was three things. And I'm going to need to see it again, but that is absolutely in the back of my mind.
Yeah, it's kind of one of my thoughts about it, too. Now, I have to be fair, and I could be critical about rides, but I think the next race we're going to look at, and we're going to turn the page to May 1st, Quaver, number 3. This is, I think, differentiates between what I would consider a bad ride, and this is just an unlucky trip. Kendrick did everything right. He just didn't get lucky.
And he's in a difficult spot here. He's actually in the white blinkers outside the 2. And he's kind of covered up early on, and he's going to get into that tight space in there, and he's going to keep chasing and chasing and chasing. It's really never one easy, clean run. You see, now he finally has a little bit of clearance, Mig, but he's going to be kept inside.
But he still has the 10 horse as his shadow, the eventual runner-up Lady of Victory. She's basically got him first run on him. She's got his shadow, not letting him out of there. So Kendrick is playing the hand dealt him very well. He just has to wait. Junior Alvarado and Lady Victory has too much horse. You can't force him out of your way.
And Junior's going to continue. If you watch here, Kendrick's going to try to come out, it looks as though, and Junior's is race riding legitimately, keeping him in.
Yeah, and now it does finally break open, and Kendrick sets her down. But when you get beat 2 short heads, you got to think if he had been able to move cleanly when he wanted to, it could have made a big difference. And I think we've seen Bobby Robato's horses have come back. They look great. They're running well. I think this is a very live stable, a stable we need to keep an eye on. They've been a bit unlucky, but the horses are prepared. They're ready to run their big races. This was an unlucky trip. I know some people, you hear them, they complain when they lose and say, oh, what was he doing? It was a bad ride. He did nothing wrong. He did everything right. He just needed a break. Yes. And it came, but it came a little late.
Came late, and here's, I think, another one who would not be hurt by you could have won at this distance and can win at this distance, but had previously won, going a shorter distance. I'd have no problem with 5 or 5.5. May have more run that way as well. May be able to make a little bit more of an one run as opposed to being so close to the pace.
It's a good point, and it definitely intensifies a horse's late kick, a little bit of that turn back, just a 16th of a mile less.
Bobby's Kitten, your selection in the Breeders' Cup a couple of years ago. That was a big price, big score, and that was the reasoning you used.
Flew down the middle of the track because he saved ground early. He came out late. Well, we're done. We blew it up on TNT, and we certainly need your help. Trips and Traps at NYRAInc.com, and hopefully next week we'll be sweating on set.